This is breaking news.
We begin with that breaking news tonight. Just in the last hour, we received a criminal complaint that gives more information about what happened leading up to the deaths of 3 people in New Lisbon earlier this week.
Yeah, we know the suspect, Virgil Thu, is now facing 3 charges of first-degree intentional homicide and life in prison if convicted.
WMTV's Shayna Najawan broke down that report. And Shayna, we now know that Thu was spotted walking on private property with what looked like a gun the night before the bodies were found.
That's right. And the next day, the bodies of his girlfriend and 2 girls, ages 12 and 13, were found locked inside a bedroom in his home, and he was nowhere to be found. The complaint reveals that all 3 of the victims died from gunshots. Thu's girlfriend, Elizabeth Kolba, was 33 years old, and while we know that one of the young girls was Thu's stepdaughter, it is still unclear what his relationship to the other girl is. Here's video our crews took Monday from where they were found. Despite efforts to find him, Thu remains at large and is considered armed and dangerous. Police say a trail cam in Lisbon Township captured Thu just yesterday in a rural wooded area. He's described as 5'11", around 160 pounds, with blue eyes and brown hair. You can see a picture on your screen. Anyone who sees Thu is urged not to approach him and to call 911 right away. Live in the studio, Shayna Najawan, WMTV 15 News.